Testing, testing.
Good morning, and welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting of the Town of Qualicum Beach. We acknowledge that we are holding this Committee of the Whole meeting on the traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, in particular the Qualicum First Nation. So this is an open house, and I just want to remind everybody this is a safe workplace. So I ask that everybody would respect that and not boo or clap or cheer or do anything else that may distract from the person speaking or discourage them from speaking perhaps with an opposing view. So this is a time where anybody can ask any questions, and we'll try and answer them with the staff present. It may actually speed up how we do this. So I welcome anyone who'd like to come to the microphone and just state your name and ask your question or make a comment. Who would like to start? Go ahead, lady in the back. Elizabeth.
Do I just speak? There we go. I don't have questions. I have a little speech prepared in which there are questions, okay? I'm here today to advocate for the Old Schoolhouse Art Center, TOSH, an institution that has served this community for 37 years out of a unique and beloved heritage destination designated building. TOSH delivers an estimated annual impact of $1 million to Qualicum Beach, welcoming 15,000 visitors a year. We offer 80-plus classes, support 19 resident artists, maintain 91% satisfaction rate, and provide a diverse exhibition program, all while advancing goals in the town's official community plan and quality of life survey. I want to clear up a recent misconception. Tosh hasn't just started asking for support. We've been advocating for a fee-for-service agreement since 2023 to secure financial stability and enhanced services. We've submitted building assessments in 2009 and 2023 on a building the town owns, identifying critical upgrades that remain unaddressed. We've also identified and shared available government grants to help fund necessary repairs. The town hasn't acted on them, and the work remains undone. Delays drive up costs, yet Tosh is still held accountable for a share of these rising expenses, despite having no control over timing or scope. How is that fair? At the same time, other longstanding organizations receive fee-for-service support, and other town-owned buildings are prioritized for improvements. I also want to address a comment made by the mayor during a council meeting in June, that this funding request would raise taxes. Excuse me. We understand that the town has important budget priorities and the challenges of allocating resources wisely for the community's long-term success. We are not asking for higher taxes, but rather for you to consider a proposal within the overall budget. Tosh's impact aligns with the town's goals, fostering a thriving community, supporting mental health, promoting cultural tourism, and enhancing the residents' quality of life. Our request is balanced and will help achieve these priorities without overburdening residents. We understand the town's considering new investments, but it's hard to reconcile that while being told there's no money for essential community infrastructure like Tosh. After being declined for mid-year support, we turned to our community. In just 3 weeks, over 1,000 people signed a petition in support of funding Tosh. This isn't about opposition, it's about fairness. Advocating for Tosh is the simplest form of democracy, ensuring all voices are heard and all community assets are treated equitably. Next week, Tosh will present a modest fee-for-service proposal which outlines our significant economic community impact and how we plan to sustain and grow our services. We believe it can be incorporated seamlessly into the town's annual budget. We ask that these documents be reviewed thoroughly with the same care that's gone into preparing them. Tosh looks forward to a continued collaborative relationship with the town, and we look forward to continuing this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. You mentioned there's be a fee-for-service presentation made next week to
Yes.
council, to the town.
It's not a presentation, it's a scoping sheet, and there's a slide deck that goes along with it. It's
Sure,
20 pages. I'm sorry, I tried to keep it. I could have made it 100. There's so much data, but yeah.
Yeah, and we saw some before. So what is the amount that the Old Schoolhouse Board would be looking for?
$75,000.
Yes, and so that's my comment about the tax increase, because we can't nickel and dime other projects. And when the museum first came to us, they wanted a small amount, $1 per capita. Well, that didn't work and wasn't going to work. So when that went up to about 25,000, I said, that's about 0.25% of our taxes. I'm going to propose to council that we increase our taxes 0.25% to help fund the museum, also with fee-for-service. And there was a concern that no, if we do that, then the people won't like the museum anymore and all that. The contrary happened. They saw that the town valued the museum. We increased taxes accordingly because we have to be transparent and fair. And so there'll be a decision made at that time when we see the scoping sheet. It will come forward to council, and when we make the budgetary decision, that will be part of the debate.
I think it's important that residents of Qualicum Beach know that for every $120,000, it's a 1% tax increase. So we're asking for $75,000. That would be $8 per resident in Qualicum Beach. And I think the last numbers for population were just over 9,000 people. I think that's changed because that was in 2021. But I think it's really important that residents understand that. We think the ask that we're asking for is modest enough to be considered in your budget, because I don't believe at this time there is an arts and culture line item on your budget.
That is correct. So if we add one, that will also reflect on the tax increase.
Okay.
So we have to be very transparent about that. And I appreciate you coming today to give us a heads up on the fee-for-service proposal, and we'll discuss that this fall when we do the strategic planning.
And the building. The building is something that needs to be paid attention to and discussed, which we have started conversation with that, which is a start. but we need to be more serious about that moving forward. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you. You're welcome. Councillor Harrison.
Yeah, so a little while ago, I remember when we had the initial presentation, I was like, well, the museum gets 120,000. Let's look at other communities same size. So I grew up in Prince George. Quesnel has a museum, and Quesnel's ballpark the same size as the town. Not exactly, but it's in the same, let's say, same area. Their museum gets about 230,000 from the city. I think the city basically runs it. They don't have a nonprofit group. They basically run it themselves. So I was like, oh, maybe 120,000 is actually a deal. So I do think when we're having these conversations, it's good to look at comparable communities and sort of have a rough view that, you know, what I see happening, I've said this to a few folks who've called me recently, that I see the tea leaves as provincial and federal budgets are going to be hit by Trump insanity and all the tariff stuff and reduced revenues, and it's going to be a hard time. And then the provincial federal governments are going to say, do we shut down essential services or do we reduce grants? And they'll reduce grants. Sorry, so arts funding is usually on the chopping block, forgive me, in hard times. So we have to have a conversation about how do we cover that gap. And then hopefully there are brighter days in 3 or 4 years' time, and then we can reassess in 3 or 4 years where we're at.
Yeah, did you also compare the Macmillan Arts Centre in Parksville, which is a similar project?
As far as I understand, and I don't have as much knowledge on this, but I can definitely inform you more with Ilana's advice. It's a different model. They are definitely being funded, but it is a different model. And just so you know, we've done everything we possibly can in terms of getting ourselves set up for BC operating. So we were set up exactly where we needed to be able to apply for that. But as soon as we did, it's no longer available. And at this point, it looks like it's not going to be opened up again until at least 2029.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Who'd like to come next? Oh, I got a list here. I got to follow the rules here. Next is Mr. Wood. John, you're up.
Oh, magic. Can you adjust the height from? No, can they adjust the height from? Good morning, Mayor and Council. My name is John Wood. I live in Eagle Crest in Qualicum Beach. I have a number of items here. I'll run my 3 minutes out and then we'll continue on at a later time. The first item I'd like to bring up is that at the previous town hall meeting on May 21st, Director Sales confirmed that the tree protection bylaw review schedule was for the Q3, Q4 of 2025. I believe I see in the agenda for this afternoon for the refinancing to do with the potential acquisition of the golf course that has been pushed by 1 fiscal year. I think that's correct. However, it has been said that the amount of town forested land to be included in FireSmart efforts is minimal compared to private-owned lands. In other words, people's residences that have trees or other things that are too close to their property, according to FireSmart. And the tree bylaw is counterproductive to those private owners maintaining their property to meet the FireSmart requirements. Delaying this is I wrote it down, delaying this is town negligence. And I don't think that delaying the review of or delaying the tree protection bylaw update should be delayed. Okay? Second item on my list. When will the town develop an evacuation plan?
Let's take that one on right now, because I know that's been an issue lately. Mr. Sales.
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. Through the chair to Mr. Wood. The town has been working with the regional district on a regional evacuation study, and so that work, all the consultation is now complete, and I believe the consulting team is putting together that plan. One important note is that often when people think of an evacuation plan for a community, that they think about those exit maps on a building that say, in case of an emergency, go this way. Emergency evacuations for communities are a little bit different. It's because every evacuation is different. There'll be a different number of people, different number of hazards throughout the community, so it always takes a decision in that moment of time. So the evacuation plan, just to let you know what's coming and maybe temper your expectations for the exit map. It's more of a decision-making framework, so saying when there needs to be an evacuation, here are the constraints. Here are the potential opportunities for exit routes. Here's how people should be notified. Here's who should be notified, all that. So it's well underway, and I don't know the exact delivery date when the consultant will be handing it over, but please stay tuned and let me know if you have more follow-up questions.
Is there an approximate delivery date that you can share with us?
I don't know that date.
Okay.
The consultation completed around 6 weeks ago. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Director Sales. My 3 minutes are up. Oh, I shall continue. Okay. In the agenda for this afternoon's meeting, which was at 2:30, was at 2 o'clock now at 1:30, the item titled under Finance Conditional Purchase Eagle Crest Golf Course Lands - funding allocations and capital and strategic plan work. I'll start that again. Funding allocations and capital and strategic plan work. Strategic plan work plan adjustments. Mouthful. The fourth whereas there talks about the need to do things with staff and financial resources to meet the possible acquisition of the Eagle Crest Golf Course, but it says also to support the due diligence period for the Qualicum Commons. I'm not aware that there is a published due diligence closing date for the Qualicum Commons situation, whatever that might be. Is there such a date?
Well, we have a 1-year lease at the moment to determine what needs to be done.
Okay.
And the one thing that we are asking from the province is to get at least a 30-year lease for any community to invest, to make the investment that are required to bring the building up to speed would be significant. And we wouldn't do that if it was just a 1-year deal.
Did you say 30-year lease?
We would like a 30-year lease.
Okay. Thank you. Also on the agenda this afternoon is an application on First Avenue West. Am I permitted to ask a question about that at this time?
Certainly.
Okay. I understand that the calculation of a building height from a building inspector's point of view varies if the lot is a sloping lot. So essentially what you do is you take the building envelope, you draw from top left to bottom right corner and opposite where it crosses in the middle. That's the height. The height is not at the street, at either one of the streets that this building will sit on. Am I correct in saying that?
Mr. Seals.
Yes, thank you. Done. Mr. Wood has described the calculation of average height at the four corners of the building, and that is correct.
Okay, thank you. Average height, that's what it's called. Okay, onward and upward. My list isn't as long today. When the development that's just to the west of the cottages development was approved, there was a rather large CIC contribution made based on the uplift in price of that land. It was in the order of $1 million. And at a council meeting, there was, I believe it was a resolution at the time, or at least a motion passed, that 50% of that CIC monies was to be allocated to health care. And I'm interested in knowing where that line item shows on our financial statements.
We don't have a line item for that yet. As you know, half of it went to help pay for the skateboard park.
Yes.
The other half, we're looking for an opportunity to work with an organization, Island Health, Ministry of Health, to see how we can make that contribution count.
But did I hear you say that it isn't an allocated portion of money, it just is in with general revenue?
It is, and the previous council made a decision to allocate it towards healthcare.
Yeah.
But we don't have healthcare facilities that the town owns, so we have to be very careful how we contribute and not make basically a subsidy of a business. I'll let Mr. Raj detail some more.
Thank you, Your Worship. So that amenity contribution does flow through our financial statements as revenue and is deposited to the Community Amenity Contribution Reserve. That's where it would show in our financial plan in the years that we anticipate to receive the contribution.
So the community amenity contribution reserve is an item that's in the financial statements.
That is correct. It's in the reserve section of the financial plan.
Thank you. Yes.
So if you go to the May 14th agenda on page 40, it's in the non-statutory reserves, and the CAC reserve currently is $375,000.
And that's the May 14th, the minutes from the May 14th meeting?
It's the actual agenda.
Actual agenda.
So that was it says like April draft on the bottom, but it's part of the audited financial statements that we approved in the May meeting.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Councillor. Another item that's on the agenda this afternoon is a respectful workplace policy, which is to be circulated. I assume that's not available. Yeah, will be at the time of the
I
meeting.
believe it is available. Ms. Svensson?
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. To Mr. Wood, yes, it is available now. We should have copies on the counter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll read it first before I ask a question.
Okay.
I think I'm almost at the end. The car wash on Fern Road, which is going through the process of being readings and approved and whatever the right terminology is. At the last meeting, if I recall correctly, the flow of the vehicles through the car wash was to be northward off Fern Road into the car wash and northward up to the alley for dispersal on the north side of that property. And I'd like to make the comment that I think having what was originally proposed was an exit back onto Fern Road. I think it's important that that there be an exit back onto Fern Road. I know there's a concern about the confusion with the traffic coming out of the car wash interfering with others. But if that was made a right-hand turn only, so they could only head towards Memorial, so there were no left-hand turns and blockading people, I think that would be a significant improvement. And I don't know if that was suggested, can be suggested, or will be suggested to the developers.
Well, you just suggested it right now.
Wow. Where's my bonus? Okay, I have at the moment nothing else. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, John. Mr. Wood. So the next person on the list is Mary Knoll. Mary?
Good morning, Mayor and Council. I have a number of questions, and the first one refers to the Eagle Crest Properties acquisition. My question is around the $8.5 million number, and I'm interested to know what kind of due diligence was done to determine that that's an appropriate amount of money to pay. External. I'm looking for external input.
Yeah, we're still doing a due diligence on the property itself, the buildings, environmental, and all that. But the number is far too much as far as an appraisal, more than double. But it's not based on the fact that we would try to run it as a golf course and make a profit. This is for long-term investment, forever. Once the town controls it, there's no longer speculation as to who might own it or what can be done with it. And it still has the possibility of a 9-hole golf course and about a 40-acre parkland. But also, very importantly, the hub, the building, the barn that was, actually it was a barn at one time, was built probably about 100 years ago. And it's now the clubhouse, but it's also a center for the community. And it has a magnificent ballroom, or a banquet room rather, that needs some improvements. But the opportunity for us to take that in as a town-owned asset, I think was, as you probably heard me say before, once-in-a-generation opportunity to do that. There's been so much speculation since the recent owners bought it about the future of the golf course, the maintenance of it, how it's be operated, what's going on inside. So this will open it up to the community for a long-term, I think, huge benefit. Thank you.
Okay, I did have actually 4 slides from the January 8th Committee of the Whole meeting that I was hoping to put up today as I talk about asset management and, you know, where we are and what we're doing now. Is it okay for them
Yeah.
to put it up? Okay. So these slides that I'm hoping to talk about as we go through are from the Paul Murray presentation about asset management and the town's current position as to where we are with our reserves and what we need to spend over the next 5-year period. Okay. This is what happens when you take a screenshot out of YouTube. As you can see on this one, it's about the asset replacement of existing assets and the 5-year capital budget. We're looking to spend $43 million. We're looking to spend $43 million over the next 5 years in transportation, drainage, facilities, parks and trails, airport, and vehicles and equipment. So this is the existing stock of what we already own. And as you can see in his comments, this is of existing general capital assets, doesn't include water or sewer, and it uses 9.8 out of our reserve funding. It requires $19 million in grant money, and it assumes that we're going to have $13 million in additional debt. The remainder of the funding to come from DCCs and CACs. Significant grant approvals and debt is needed because the current amount of contribution to asset replacement from property taxes is insufficient. Okay. The next slide.
Can I ask Mr. Hare to comment on the comments in this page?
Respectfully, I'm not sure that's fair. These are actually not his slides. These are Paul
Oh,
Murray's
I'm sorry. I
slides.
thought you took a screenshot from the book. That looks strange to me. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
So slide number 2 talks about new or expanded asset financing. So this is stuff that is not in the previous slide. So there's an additional $17 million there over the next 5 years. This asset replacement funding is not used to finance asset replacement. The previous slide that I showed you, the $43 million, is not being used to finance new or expansion. Okay, so this $17 million here is over and above the $43 million I showed before. Deferring these projects does not impact the need to provide asset replacement funding to existing assets. Adding new infrastructure will increase future replacement costs and the future contribution to reserves for the funding budget. Slide 3. Slide 3 deals with just the transportation component, and it's a replacement of paving roads, etc. We're looking at just under $1 million in the next 5 years. That's all we plan to spend on replacing of roads. That includes the Butterball slope stabilization, Primrose Fern Street downtown, paving on Highway 19A, and road paving and traffic calming grant dependent. And that's about $4, $5, $6 million in that monies. Okay, so none of this stuff is in the current plan yet. So if you total all that up, it's about $6 million. Okay, some of this relies on grant money. Memorial to Crescent was $3.8 million, and Primrose was 1.7. Given that lately we've not gotten the grants that we thought, I'm sure these numbers have changed and increased the amount that we need to take out of our reserves already, as well as we will need to borrow more money if we don't get the grants. Slide number 4. His proposal was that we increase 1.3, and what he's saying to us is that by increasing the 1.3, reducing it from 1.3 to 1 will eventually delay the individual asset replacements. So we didn't want to do that, so we said 1.3 in our budget. The asset replacement reserve will be reduced below the minimum level. Deferring the replacement of an asset does not reduce the property tax input to a typical homeowner that year because it costs more money to build later. And the replacement cost is higher, and the risk is higher because assets fail. My point here is that we're going to spend 8.5 on Eagle Crest. I'm not sure what the magic number is for the Qualicums, but it's going to be significant. I think the school board determined it took $3 million just to keep the building operating, never mind actually fixing it for a 30-year life, as you mentioned earlier today. I'm really concerned that we're taking the budget book, all the strategic work we've done over the last 10 months, and we're basically ripping it up and starting again by deferring everything. That's my point.
Thank you. I thought these pages were from our book, so I'm going to ask Mr. Hare to perhaps respond at a later council meeting, because we didn't expect this much detail and information, and I don't think it's fair to anybody on the spot. So unless Mr. Hare wants to make some comments now, I would expect at the next budget meeting that we take all of your comments into consideration and have an informed feedback and also response. Would that be okay? Thank you. Would you like to speak at this point?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think I'd like to look over the information and provide a concise response to the concerns that were raised.
I understand.
At a later time, as you suggested.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and now we have the information, we can look at it. So thank you for providing the detail, and we will respond to it when at the appropriate time. Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Sorry, just the one question Mary made earlier. We did do an assessment for the Eagle Crest property when we started the process. We don't have a formal third-party assessment of all the costs, like day one costs. So now you have it. Now here's all the work you have to do. But we do have an assessment that the mayor alluded to.
Yeah, and the money that we need to buy it and to initially upgrade will have to come from the sale of the lands in the Eagle Crest area. Thank you. Next is Ron Girard.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. First time I'm getting up to speak, finally. I'm Ron Girard, a Qualicum Beach resident, and thank you, John and Marie, for setting the precedent. Now I can slow down a little bit and not have to rush through my 3 minutes. I'm just going to read from my notes. I decided over a year ago that I would attend all council meetings, committee as a whole meetings, and the entire budgetary process. I've accomplished that goal in person, online, in real time, when I'm away in the winter. It's been kind of fun. Lots of scope sheets, I've learned. I've learned a lot about how the town is operated, led by council, and managed by staff. Now, here are some of the things I've learned about mayor and council. Mayor Westbrook insists when you address the council that our town is to be referred to as Qualicum Beach and not Qualicum. If you're walking down the street with him, the mayor's be prepared to join him in picking up trash, like we did one day. Mayor Westbrook doesn't like littering. I've learned Councillor Young is a strong advocate for arts and culture and will go out of her way to get them funding. I've learned that Councillor Vandervalk is a really strong believer in gentle gentrification, and that as a resident, you should not expect to be able to cut down a tree unless you hear from Councillor Skipsey. And know this, that if Councillor Harrison knows his statistics, and by the end of every council meeting, you're going to know if he's under the weather or how much sleep he's had the night before. I've also learned a lot about our staff, and that we have a very confident staff in Qualicum Beach. Whenever I'm testing the communication system, either in person or through the public inquiry format, they've been very responsive and open to follow-up discussions. So I think that should be noted. So now that I've completed my 1-year participation in the process, I plan to start asking questions, and I'm going to start with today. So my first question is related to the question period that's open to the public and at open house meetings like today, or during committee as a whole meetings. Is it possible to have some live engagement in real time for those residents who are online and have a question? I know that you, Mayor Westbrook, have brought this up a few times in meetings. And in May, I spoke with our Qualicum Beach IT manager, and he said it is doable, similar to what you do on Zoom when you bring in consultants and other guests. I also submitted a public inquiry and was told that there was no plan at this time, but if council approved it, it could be done, and that's my first question. Can it be done?
Well, I think you answered your own question. It can be done, but how much staff time does it take? How do we organize it? So make sure that the questions that are asked are appropriate. But I've heard from other communities, especially during financial debates. I think the City of Victoria tried at one time where people could send in a question. They weren't live on Zoom, but they could submit, like in a chat or some other way, to forward a question that then was relayed to the appropriate staff person to respond. So they could sit at home and they could hear their question being asked and responded to. And we can take a look at that.
I've seen that happen in the past as well. I've worked in the U.S. in the corporate world, and you can do that. You can kind of have a set-up queue, which I heard you say this at a meeting a few months ago. And I said to myself, I got to ask that question when I get back, because you can queue a person in, and then they can come up. That way you don't have all kinds of people up on Zoom. But it can be done. So I would like to see that followed up on, because this winter I'll be at a disadvantage, because sometimes I want to ask a really good question and somebody's up there talking about chickens or noise in the next door neighbor. I mean, seriously. So what kind of follow-up could that be done soon?
We'll discuss that and when we do our strategic planning, because we need to know what's involved. Make sure it's safe, because when you're here,
Right.
I can see you.
Right.
And if you start hearing people behind you jeering or rolling eyes or whatever, I can stop that and
Yeah.
make you feel safe.
Yeah, good point.
So I want to make sure that everybody feels safe,
Yeah.
not just you, but also the people in the gallery.
Yeah.
And we want to have to make sure that we set some clear guidelines of how this procedure would work.
Yeah, and I know you'll do that, because I've seen you operate with the gallery in meetings from afar, and you do that, so I appreciate it. My next question is related to the Qualicum Beach map of the property owned by the town of Qualicum Beach. So I would like to revisit the discussion that we had on the June 25th OCP meeting here. At that time, Mr. Sales stated that creating such a map would be difficult to keep updated, and it would need to be continually revised, and then discussion ended. I'd like to respond to that. I'll take that a little further. I think it is doable, and such a map would be a great reference document for taxpayers to know what it is that we all own. Once established, this map could be quite easily revised and used during all types of strategic planning sessions and other meetings, and letting people know. So can we pick up on that a little bit, and what the challenges would be from Mr. Sales or from you?
Yes, and it's not even so much the cost, it's staff time.
Right.
As you heard, we're getting engaged very much so with Eagle Crest Golf Course. We're engaged with the Qualicum Commons. You also know that there is an OCP review and QP negotiations. So staff's got their plate full, and I'm asking everyone, please don't bring up new initiatives, because their plate literally is full. And so to ask, can this be done? Yes, it can be done. I know it can be done, but at what cost, at what time? So I'll ask Mr. Sales, you've been thinking about what I said, you can add your comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. Yes, it is possible. The map exists. The last time it was generated would have been for the 2018 OCP review, and at that time it was included on the cover sheet of a discussion paper. As noted, it's the process of updating it and keeping it current that would take some staff time. So it would take a little bit more thought as to how much staff time and what the protocol would be for keeping it updated, whether it's continually displayed on the online system or not. So live discussion. Once again, it could be referred to strategic planning if it's an important item. Thank you.
I think what it'll do, it'll also help you in regarding to deflecting questions coming from when we go to the pop-up meetings or when we, other sessions. I've heard developers even ask the questions of what do you guys own, and they could easily refer them to that, and it would save a lot of time in those meetings. So anyway.
And I just want to make sure that people know it's not a secret. This is not something we hide.
Right.
We want people to know this is your community and these are the properties that the town owns and has to look after.
Absolutely.
And how many structures we have that we are responsible for, like the old schoolhouse, the museum. I think there's about 40 structures in town that need maintenance, upkeep, and sometimes we have to have a lease with different organizations. So It's very time-consuming. We are blessed with having the facilities, amenities that benefit the community's quality of life, but it also takes a lot of work to upgrade them and maintain them. Not just identify them on a map, but to look after them. That's the big
Yeah.
part.
No, I agree. So I'll leave that one with you, and
Sure.
and if we can, that'd be great.
Thank
So I'm going to keep taking my mulligan here since I've never had one, and ask a couple more questions and some comments. So here's a comment. On the July 16th, at the July 16th council meeting, the council approved to proceed with putting up a flashing light on Memorial Avenue in the establishment of a rectangular-type crossing. This includes a curb extension as you turn right onto First Avenue. I want to thank council for that approval, but I want to remind council that this is only a start, as you know, because I know everybody's concerned about that area. The blind corner still remains a serious safety concern and an issue right there at the bus stop, and you know I live right there. Councillor Harrison did make mention of the closure of Railway Street in that meeting, and I'd like to remind our town and the planner and staff, because Mr. Sales did comment on it, that Railway Street still remains high on the transportation priority plan. It's high on the list, and it's got a high matrix score, and I reviewed it this weekend before I came in again just to make sure I was up to date, and it comes from your 2023 update. So I'd like to make sure that we continue considering that, and that it does stay up high on the priority list. I don't know if Mayor, if you want Mr. Sales to comment, or you'd like to comment on that.
As you pointed out, the railway is an issue about making that intersection better. And the blind corner, we looked at trying to get the crosswalk further to the north, but because of the railway property and their rules, we have to put it where we are, which I think is still a good location. But I also think further down towards Village Way, there could be a crossing right from where you enter your area to come out and have a crosswalk there.
At Village Way, you mean,
Yeah.
more at Village Way?
Yeah. And there may not be that many people using it. I'll tell you, I see a lot of traffic that is using that, pedestrians, but also for slowing people down.
Right.
And the warning signals that we have coming into town from the east, where you get a happy face if you slow
Right.
down.
Right.
Now, there may be some other measures we can take to make sure that people come into this area being aware that this is a high traffic, lots of pedestrian, lots of activities, lots of events, that they slow down. That's the biggest thing, is get people to slow down.
Right. Now, can I comment
Yeah.
on that just before? And because the other thing that's going to happen is once we have the four-way flashing, you're going to get more congestion coming up Memorial Avenue.
Yeah.
And that's going to cause a real concern there at the corner coming into Railway Street, where I live in the Gables. So we're going to have an issue there. And I know, Mr. Sales, you and I have talked about this maybe 18 months ago, but yeah, so I'll let you comment.
I'll refer to Ms. Varela first.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you, Your Worship. So just a note that we do compile all the requests received through the year and direct those to our traffic engineer, who is a third party, who then will be reviewing the community transportation plan and associated projects. I believe that's in September this year. So again, any of those comments that the public has, please put those in through the public inquiry system, and we'll make sure that the engineer does get to take a look at those and consider that when he's prioritizing. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, so I'll add to it some more, like you say. Great.
Yeah, you seem to know the system, so that's how it works.
That's how it works. Well, I've used it, but I just add to it, and this is great. I'll come and talk some more on these things.
Thank you.
So, all right, so my next one is a comment and a caution on the June 25th OCP meeting, where a resident of Qualicum Beach made reference to the Kelowna 10 pillars for the municipality. Remember that? The 10 pillars of Kelowna. And you thought that, I think it was Susan Lloyd who made the comment, but you suggested that was a good idea. So I took a look at it, though, and I have taken a close look at the 10 pillars. And while I support the concept of some of the pillars, I want to caution Qualicum Beach on using Kelowna or West Kelowna, for that matter, as a model for development. For those of us that are familiar with Kelowna, in the Kelowna area, the growth it has experienced, you know that there's major buildings and development issues, serious congestion and traffic issues. I have a mother who lives 25 years in West Kelowna and a brother who lives in the Mission by the hospital, and it's not good. So as we continue working on our OCP of the future and work with our limited land, that we plan wisely with a well-balanced land use approach, protecting gentrification as best we can, but accommodating that population growth and the related services and needs and the demands. And I know we have one coming up later today that's going to be another high demand for new structure. We have a lot of building going on and going to be in the future, and I just think we have to be ready for it. So that's just a comment. I don't know if you want to comment on it, but.
No, I just think that is a cautionary note.
Yeah, thank you. One more, and then I'll sit down. But this one's, anyway. This question is related to the downtown core parking accessibility and related traffic control enforcement. At the conclusion of the June 25th OCP meeting, Councillor Skipsey commented on the exclusion of the considerations and the concerns for parking to accommodate the growth plans for Qualicum Beach. At the time I was going to speak, but we were already in a few-hour meeting. And because, so I'd like to comment on that now by the parking plan for the downtown core by referencing page 28 of the Quality of Life Survey or study that's related to community safety. When residents were asked about the area of the downtown, which I think you, Councillor Skipsey, were referring to, they were difficult to access, and this was the #1 area was a downtown core parking accessibility. On that same page, on page 28, related to that for making residents feel safer was increased police presence and traffic control and enforcement. They're all there, and I have it here, but I think we're all reminded of it. Parking spaces downtown are limited. And as Qualicum Beach has grown, it remains prime real estate. With a population reaching 10,000 and growing, safety issues related to parking and traffic control will continue to grow as well, and I know we're aware of it, but we need to do something about it instead of waiting for it to fall upon us, I believe. We see a convergence of the tourists and their vehicles, the pedestrians, residents coming to shop from Chartwell and Eagle Crest, as well as delivery trucks, contractors working in our community. I believe we need to address the immediate short-term safety issues while planning for the future long-term growth instead of letting it come upon us. Before we consider adding new prime land parking, prime land for parking, I think that there's some things that we can do to improve on what we have for parking and how we can protect it for all users. There are a lot of vehicles that are ignoring the parking restrictions, and they are seriously breaking the rules. As a starter, I'm requesting that Mayor and Council review bylaw number 225, refine and amend it if needed, and direct staff to consistently enforce it. Last time this bylaw was, when this bylaw was put into place was, and correct me wherever you want, but I went over it, was 1970. And then I saw that it was only amended because they wanted to do some consolidation in 2008. So it might be time to revisit it with the growth that we've experienced. Bylaw 225 speaks to all restrictions for street parking, 24-hour overnight parking max, overweight vehicles downtown, trailers and motorhome parking in downtown and on the waterfront. As I understand, there's currently 2-hour designated limiting parking in some areas, and what I've seen. Ideally, there should be additional 2-hour designated parking areas with applicable signage. This is just an aside, but paid parking could be something considered and potentially have some revenue building benefit to Qualicum Beach. However, in order to be effective, bylaw 225 and the related traffic control issues would need to be enforced. Incidentally, for those who aren't aware with when this was put into place, 1970, for those who do not know, the current bylaw carries with it a fine not to exceed $500 or imprisonment not to exceed 60 days. That's what I read. We now have 2 bylaw officers, and this is a great start, and I hope we can keep them now that we have 2, and we need to keep building in that direction. We have minimal law enforcement, and we do know that, so even if someone comments, say what you want, but we don't see the police very often around here. Enforcing bylaw 225, or an amended version of it, would keep traffic flowing smoothly in our community. Limiting vehicle parking for any lengthy period of time would allow space for tourists to park safely. let residents shopping from Chartwell, Eagle Crest, and Pheasant Glen to keep coming back instead of shopping elsewhere, and also allow for our local merchants to benefit from controlled traffic turnover, especially in the summer months, which benefits their customer traffic and in their stores and in their restaurants. So that one, I'd like potentially to hear a first comment from somebody, and then follow up. I will follow up on that from there, but I really thank you for your time.
Thank you for doing the research and coming up with suggestions. That's very helpful.
Right.
So
Well, I've heard you say that, like come up with some ideas, don't just come in,
Yeah.
like we hear at the airport noise one, you know, anyway.
And you did. Some of the things that you talked about, we are addressing, and I'm going to give Mr. Sales an opportunity to respond to some of the parking plans that we do have starting this year, this summer, actually. Mr. Sales.
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. There are some plans advancing in the short term. You know, we're doing a study currently about increasing the amount of parking available on Harlech, which is, you know,
Right.
the extension behind the old fire hall. So we do know that parking is a constraint. In terms of enforcement, yes, the town does currently have 2 bylaw officers, and so there's now much more presence in the community. When those bylaw officers are doing tours, they're typically looking primarily at safety issues right now, things like parking in front of hydrants or obstructing intersections or things that are a safety hazard. And 2-hour parking is typically on the basis of complaints. That's how the town's bylaw enforcement usually works. When you transition from a complaint-based system to a patrol-based system like you would see in the city of Nanaimo or something like that, it is a fairly significant change. You know, you get into license plate readers and things like that. It's no longer people walking around with chalk and chalking people's tires, you know. So it would require some thought as to exactly how that rollout would be. We do have a parking management strategy in the strategic plan for a future year. It's not this year and it's not next year. I don't recall exactly which year it is. But it could be discussed again in strategic plan. And if it's something that council wants to advance more quickly, we would just need to put some thought into exactly what that sequence looks like. But I just wanted to kind of highlight that moving from complaint-based system to proactive enforcement is a considerable change. Thank you.
I'd like to just respond with a couple of things there. One, I think we kind of skipped over, but we did a little bit. The bylaw since 1970 needs to be, oh, I'm sorry, you're right, needs to be maybe revised. I think there's probably a few bylaws that need to be revised mainly based on the growth of our community, because we're now up to 10,000, and as we know, we're heading to 13 to 15,000, and we're trying to protect we'll say the municipal borders and trying to grow and accommodate goals like Councillor Harrison has for the growth in that. But we have to be prepared for it, is what I've been saying. And since Mr. Sales also brings up about on Harlech and that parking there, all it would take there, you could organize that parking very easily. Do some real vertical parking, which I know Marlise Diamond has brought up with council as well, and even with the fire hall, the old fire hall, something maybe could be done there. But I know I've taken a lot of your time. I'll let you respond once, and then again, thank you.
Well, yeah, we looked at behind the old fire hall and the Harlech Avenue, and if we don't have yellow lines, because this is one of my thoughts, like on the side streets, Primrose Beach, if we don't have the yellow line, you can have angle parking on one side and parallel on the other, and we can accommodate that. And that's what we're planning on doing by Harlech. How many spots, one time you calculated how many parking spots would there be created?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Westbrook. Coors Engineering is currently doing a layout, and they'll give us a parking count when that work is done. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Gerard. Yes, sir. Yes, Councillor Harrison.
Sorry, just a couple of things. One, to live up to the stereotype, A, 3-hour sleep, B, demographics. So if you look at 1986, there were 215 citizens over the age of 75 or older. Now it's 2,635. And in the last 5 years, that's where our growth is, citizens 75 and older. Basically, every other demo is up or down about 100. But that demographic in the last 5 years, from those 16 to 21, sorry, we're almost, next year we're getting a new round of census data. But it was an increase of 360 So that's where our growth is. And before I got involved in council, there was a QBRA meeting I attended where the owner of what used to be The Source was attending. And she's a lovely woman. And she talked specifically how for some of her older clients, they're looking for parking in front of the store because they have a hard time walking. So there's a lot of parking that isn't utilized. I know Mr. Sales and previously Mr. Weir would address this before, where, so at Canada Day recently, I showed up about 10, 15 minutes before we did the official opening, and I parked under the town hall. I was the only car under town hall, which was open. It was open to the public. I didn't have to use a button or anything. It was wide open, but I was the only car there. On a hot, sunny day. So it's actually, you're really cool when you get in your car. It's ideal. So I do think that there's issues that folks want street parking, especially because they have limited mobility, but that's at a premium. And as we add more people who all want that street parking, how do we manage that? And that's a really tough circle to square. But there are some demographic pressures that are really it's going to make parking really difficult, actually, over the next several years.
And then I've noticed quite a few business people that park their car in front of their store so they can keep an eye on the store. This is the best parking spot. So I've pointed out a few times, yeah, but that's an expensive truck. I got to keep an eye on it. Okay. Councillor Van der Valk.
And my understanding is that we actually do have quite a bit of parking. And as Councillor Harrison alluded to and Mayor Westbrook, it's a question of people being willing to park farther away from where their destination is. But in terms of tourists and people that are more able to park farther away, perhaps the signage would be a good solution in terms of letting people know where there is other parking.
I think one of the prime locations was the Civic Center parking lot. It's big, and there's a nice entrance into 2nd Avenue. If you look at the malls in Nanaimo, you got to walk a lot further from where you tend to park to the front entrance. So if people could park and walk a little bit from the community Civic Center, it would be helpful. Also, would be helpful, and people indicated in the quality of life survey, for the previous quality of life survey, where they said if I had public transit in my area, we would use it. And it was a huge response that said that. So we went ahead and we got a bus going in every part of the community, every hour. But very few people use it. And it's not so much the cost of the bus, which isn't very big, but it's the empty seats. Trying to get people to use transit. When they said they would, we go in good faith and we'll plan it. We spend a lot of money doing it, and we may have to revisit that whole plan and schedule as well. But we did that one time before, where west of Civic Center was completely cut off from transit. And then when people realized, as I'm getting older, it would be nice to have the transit back. So some of the people who were the most vociferous complainants about paying for transit that we didn't need, they're now asking if we can bring it back. But there must be something in between. And at one time we used taxis where they would have to pay a portion of the taxi to the Civic Center where there is the kind of a hub and contribute to that. So we can look at some other options because it is a significant expense, and it has been pointed out by members of the community that we need to be perhaps more frugal with that money. Anybody else would like to come? I had no further speakers list, so anybody else would like to come? Let's ask if somebody else would like to come, John. Terry, come ahead.
Tim Pritchard, Qualicum Beach. It's hard to follow.
My apologies, I called you Terry.
I go by almost anything.
It's the name of the fiance of my daughter, so that name kind of starts becoming familiar.
It's hard to follow Mr. Wood and Mr. Gerard. A couple of items, if I might. So I understand things. The staff is already in the process of preparing for the upcoming strategic plan, developing scoping sheets. That the initiatives here in the scoping sheets include a combination of updates from the current plan and new items that will be included in the strategic planning discussions. And the CAO has alluded to that earlier in saying that new initiatives come from consideration of matters that have been raised in communications from the public during the past year. That's understood. That's all fine, but I'd suggest there's a missing link here, which should be reconsidered. If those in the chamber this morning or watching a video broadcast have an idea or a concern that they think should be considered as part of the next strategic plan review, there does not appear currently to be a formal way for their request to be submitted for considerations. It is recognized that the public can attend the upcoming strat plan meetings in the fall and comment on the draft initiatives and scoping sheets. However, they cannot, as I understand it currently, at that time, submit for consideration new initiatives to be considered in the plan. What is needed is a period, possibly during the summer months, when members of the public can propose initiatives for the council's considerations, which could be assessed and possibly lead to scoping sheets being prepared to be part of the strategic plan review in the fall. If this can't be done this year because of staffing consideration, so then it should be seriously considered for the next strategic plan review in the fall of 2026. So that's my point.
Thank you. Well, we just heard of one this morning with the old schoolhouse, but Ms. Varela, would you like to comment on that?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think that's a very good idea. How it has been happening now is informally throughout the year as we attend committees of the whole or listen to items that come up through council discussion. Then we look for a council champion for each of those scoping initiatives, and then that's how they're funneled into strategic planning. So by all means, for 2027 strategic planning, we could reach out to council at that time to say, is there a process that you'd like to add on to your strategic planning process that would accommodate what Mr. Pritchard is talking about? We won't be able to do it for 2026, given that we're currently trying to move things off the plate. But I think it could be a possibility for 2027 with future council decision making. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. And I have seen where a member of the community had a request that obviously required council discussion and have referred them to that process. So it was put on the list of things to consider during the what we call blue sky thinking, which became part of the strategic plan. So it is possible for people to submit an idea and for us to work on that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to make a couple of comments related to the Community Transportation Plan. The Community Transportation Plan, or CTP, originally known as the Age-Friendly Transportation Plan, has now been in effect for over a decade and has led to a number of important safety and pedestrian projects being undertaken. The plan originally identified 44 improvement projects determined to be important for the town to undertake. These projects were identified and documented by the town engineer, Bob Weir, and they coordinated with the town traffic consultant, Richard Duell. Since the initial study was presented in 2013, there have been, I think it's 4, could be 3 or 4 updates where completed projects were recorded and newly identified projects were added to the list of projects to be undertaken. All projects have been prioritized using the 6 criteria ranking system outlined in the transportation plan. The last CTP update was presented in February 2024. At this time, the summary showed 5 RRFPs already installed, plus an additional 4 flashing light crossings. This represented 20% of all the completed projects. When the Age-Friendly Transportation Plan started, the initial projects approved and undertaken were flashing light crossings. A number of these were largely funded by the ICBC year-end grants, which required minimal town expenditures. Now fast forward to today, and where are we? Where do things stand? Well, the listing reported in the late 2023 consultant report showed that 61 projects now are identified to be undertaken. That's after the ones that already be completed. The funding for some of these projects is included in the current financial plan. Now, if we look at the specifics of these 61 projects, we can see that this list includes 13 additional RRFPs, which is, people aren't familiar, rectangular, what are they called? Flashing beacons. Projects at various crossings and intersections. This, again, is over 20% of all identified projects. Of note, this does not include the RRFP signaling recently proposed at Memorial and First Avenue, which Mr. Gerard referred to, intersection to address problems there. So now, here's the point of my question. The traffic control RRFP projects have been identified as important traffic control and pedestrian safety measures to be undertaken, but there's still not a lot of work to be done. They're relatively low cost in the probably lower than almost any projects taken. Some do get up as high as 100,000 K, but 100K. However, they're often much lower, and they can attract grant funding. They may well save lives. So the question is, what steps can be taken to advance the 13+ RRFP projects on the list to the installation stage?
Okay, that's a very good question. I think all of council would like to hear that. So that's a question I would like to ask staff to consider and report back on at the next council meeting, because that's a very important feature. Ms. Rella?
Your Worship, could that be referred to the upcoming September 10th, 4 p.m. Committee of the Whole meeting to address that? Again, Mr. Pritchard, if you would mind putting those comments in through the public inquiry system, and I'll make sure the traffic engineer gets those. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very good. One final thing, if I might. I don't try to count the number of years, but we have the Naked Naturals proposal at Fernan Memorial or close by, which probably is getting 4 or 5 years ago before it started. Can you provide any indication of when something will happen? Will something happen in the next 3 to 5 years on this project, including the underground parking proposed?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Pritchard. As you know, we were asked to identify the location for the ramp, not only for their underground parking, but also for the town. We identified that. So now we're basically waiting for them to come up with the plans and build the store before we start doing the rest of the parking area. And people have made a comment about why we're delaying that. Well, we're not really delaying it. We're waiting for them to start the store, and then when that's done, we can look at the rest of the area as far as the community would like to see there. Any update on the Naked Natural store, Mr. Seals?
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. No updates from staff at this time. It is up to them as to when they initiate the next stage of development.
If I might, just one related comment to that, and Councillor Harrison talked about he was very fortunate to be able to get into underground parking, and it was virtually empty. There's two aspects of this which raise concern about what's proposed. First, I'd suggest that a lot of seniors don't particularly like underground parking, and they get intimidated by it. So we need to think about that given our demographics. Also, where you find the most underground parking in major cities, it's either as part of a condominium project, or if it's public, it's paid for parking. So if we're not going to, I believe, have paid for parking here, so there's no revenue generation. So it's pretty hard to make a project like that even considered to be economic. So, and we know that the cost of that has just continued to mount. So I just leave it at that.
Thank you. Anyone else from the gallery? Yes, Dave, coming up.
Good morning. I knew I was shrinking. It's the new knee. It's the new knee. Dave Gorson and I live on Memorial Avenue. A couple of small questions. I'm wondering if anyone could advise to what degree a new system for search within our documentation are we using AI? I thought that back in October of 2021, some of the existing council members and previous council had brought the question of Eaglecrest purchase. So I did a search on it, and I couldn't find anything. I knew that it was there some time ago. Nothing came up, and had to go to PQ News to get an update on what transpired back in October of 2021. I understand there was a proposal to consider purchasing it back at that time as well. I think that was when there was a consideration of going from 18 holes to 9. So that's my first question. I'm wondering how much AI our new system is being utilized.
Okay, I won't go into the details of the Eaglecrest scenario, but the AI question, I think we can respond to. Mr. Sales.
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. I'll respond in a slightly different way. We would have to talk to IT about exactly how much AI it is, but to address the larger question of why you were not able to find that document, I would just highlight that staff are working with our communications team because there have been issues identified with the search functionality on the current website, and it's being looked at. So regardless of whether it's AI or some other search algorithm, it's being improved. Thank you.
Thank you. Second one was with regard to our OCP and the quality of life survey. And when Luke provided his summary presentation, I asked the question of to what degree is rental accommodation available in Qualicum Beach, and did any of the survey work determine from any residents whether they are renting or whether they're renting out? And I couldn't get an answer, so I did generate a request, and eventually Bailey spoke to me by phone. I never had, if you like, a formal written response, and I'm wondering when this takes place, to what degree does council get to see the end result?
I have a clarifying question through to the delegation. So you're requesting information on the number of rentals or people's willingness to rent their spaces? Like, I'm not clear on the question, and I don't think I've seen a written response or a written question come in through the inquiry system. So help me understand what it exactly is you're looking for.
I wanted to know whether during our survey, residents had been asked, do you rent part or all of your property out? Or if you're a rentee, do you rent, and how much rental is there available in Qualicum Beach? My understanding is we're at -1%, but I haven't seen anything to confirm that.
Okay, Mr. Seals?
Thank you. So that information is available through the census, which comes out every 5 years. Councillor Harrison would likely know of other sources in terms of tracking rental data, but I would note that when they do the long form census every 5 years, that type of rental information is gathered. Thank you.
Your name was used in vain. Go ahead.
So just the first thing, in the previous term, there was no process to buy the golf course. There was discussion about buying the golf course, but it was about a resolution to not buy the golf course. But it's in the minutes. You'd have to, and I will admit, when I try to search for certain documents, it's hit and miss sometimes. So there'll be reports, and there'll be like 2 years missing in the middle, and I don't know why. And staff generally, if you mention it specifically, they'll follow up, and generally those reports will show up. But I just think there was a huge amount of data to be transferred, and I don't know enough about the IT process of including keywords to link searches or something. I don't know how that works, but I do sympathize because I know sometimes I'm looking for a document before a council meeting, and oh my gosh, I have to go through the minutes now, and I have to. It's laborious. Renter market data. There are 600 renter households roughly in Qualicum Beach. CMHC data only tracks primary rental market, of which that's maybe 10% of a rental market. So what I do sometimes is I go on Craigslist and I look at Qualicum Beach rentals. At any given time, because most of the rentals in Qualicum Beach are secondary suites, right? So something in your backyard, something in your basement. If you have a basement, very few homes have basements. But it's usually about 1% is available in the secondary market. There is no data source that tracks that. They don't track small communities. So you kind of have to do it informally with 600 people are renting roughly in Qualicum Beach. Then how many Craigslist listings are there that are active? And it's generally around 1. A healthy rental market is about 3%. Our housing needs report said I think we needed 3 units to create a stable rental market. No. Qualicum Beach, where we are outliers for things that are not good, is actually the rental market. So the percentage of renters who spend more than 30% of their income on rent, we're the 3rd worst community in British Columbia. Last time the BC Nonprofit Housing Association collated the data, the provincial average is around like 40-ish, a little bit under 40. We're at like 53. So we are worse than New York City, worse than Seattle. Granted, what you're getting in Qualicum Beach is a lot more than in, say, downtown, New York City. Obviously, you're gonna have a much nicer place. But that 30% metric, we're actually really, really weak. So that's an area of some concern. But generally, I'd recommend, I've had so many years worth of conversations with CMHC about their rental market data and how it really, they think the average cost of a 2-bedroom in Qualicum Beach is like $1,100. Which is nonsense, right? It's 2,500-ish. So it's an area where they recognize there's a problem. BC Housing too, right? That's what determines the cost of the affordable housing in town. Is CMHC data, but CMHC data is terrible. So there's a recognition of that. Like I've talked to BC Housing too. It's called the Housing Income Limit, or the HILs. They recognize there's a problem. They're trying to find workarounds, but it's really hard because there's no authoritative source. And the census, to Mr. Sales' point, is probably the best source, but it's always imperfect. So yeah, but general rule of thumb, when I check, because I check periodically, it's about 1% is available. That's on the low side, and it does tend to be pretty expensive.
But in the...
Thank you, Councillor Harrison.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
In the quality of life, the OCP summary, it said the goal for the 5-year plan was 3%, and for the 20-year was 11%. That was the goal to meet expectations. And I'm hoping that any new development considerations are considering rental as well as just construction.
Thank you.
Minor point, I live on Memorial Avenue. When I first moved here 20 years ago, when I came out of, the back of my house backs onto Memorial, so I have to come up Sunningdale Road East. And when I first arrived here, I had to turn right. I was not allowed to turn left. And of course, we've got all the brand new development of Memorial Avenue, beautification. I own a fairly small, compact, efficient little Fiat 500. I come out there and vegetation is beautiful. It's kept low, but I cannot see vehicles coming southward up the hill. So I keep my fingers crossed, have to keep looking down to see if there's a little window and have to judge at what speed they're coming up as to when I can pull out, as well as looking left. My neighbors will hate me for this, but maybe you should reconsider only a right turn there, and any development further down Memorial Avenue, Hoylake Road, they're going to have to consider right turns only. I think that was a topic that came up earlier on with the congestion on Memorial Avenue.
I think that's a reasonable suggestion we should consider. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Anyone else before we go to second speakers? Yes, come on up, sir.
Good morning, Mayor and Council members. Just have a remark about infrastructure development. Given the current American administration and threats to our economy, excuse me, For me, an idea of an interrail railway that goes up and down the island, to me, seems to be a no-brainer to help support our own economy here on the island, promote tourism. I don't know if you've discussed this in the past or what the hurdles are to maybe support an interrail system from, say, Victoria, Esquimalt through Victoria, through the Cowichan Valley, Duncan, Lanceville, Nanaimo, perhaps all the way to Campbell River. I mean, that would, I think, enhance local tourism dollars, encourage Canadians to stay at home and keep their hard-earned money that they've saved, for travel. I don't know if this community would like more visitors. I mean, there's only so much a community can support. Whether local businesses would appreciate extra people here. I mean, because I could basically go down to Victoria with my mom and have lunch. You could leave in the morning, go down there and walk around and come back and be home probably by 5 o'clock, or vice versa. People from Victoria could bring their families up and enjoy a nice day here and be back in the evening. So, I mean, in Switzerland, you can go anywhere in Europe, right? Am I wrong? You can travel anywhere on light rail, basically anywhere in Europe for an affordable price. I've talked to a few business members, won't name names. Oh, no, that'll never happen, the grant money. But I know all the premiers are in Ontario right now discussing large amounts of sums of money to promote infrastructure within Canada. So instead of exporting all our steel to the US, we're going to invest in building new bridges, new infrastructure projects to keep that steel in Canada. And I'm sure that might be available for something for Vancouver Island. I don't know. Light rail. I know there's trellises that would need to be rebuilt. I know this has been discussed. There's probably a lot of cost. But say a train that leaves every half an hour from Victoria and goes to Campbell River and peaks tourist months, I think would be a good thing. I don't know if anyone's considered this. I mean, look at how my mom and I drive up and down the island all the time. The railroad is beautiful. It would be an absolutely stunning scenic trip for tourists and locals alike. So that's my only thought. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it would be good.
You heard my comment about transit. People said, yes, if we bring transit to my area, the community, we'll use it. They don't.
Totally.
And not many people do. And when the train did run, ENN Trail did run from Victoria to Comox, Courtney. I went on it one time myself. It's a beautiful ride.
Yeah.
But it takes a long time to make all these stops, and very few people on it. I think I could probably count the people in the cabin I was in on one hand. So people weren't using it. The province, who one time looked at putting some money into it, is a huge expense. And they built in what then called the New Island Highway, which is the old Island Highway along the waterfront, New Island Highway up there. And they said, that's our investment. We're not going to invest in a railway that's going to take ongoing maintenance support that we can't really justify because of low usage. To run a train, like you talked about in Europe, I'm from Holland, we have trains everywhere. And they run on green power mostly. But the population can support that. They use it. We don't have the population that supports it. And as Councillor Harrison said, if people have to walk from the train station uptown, they want to park in front of a store. So for them to come to our train station and then walk uptown or go wherever they need to go, it just wasn't happening. And so for us to pursue that, and the regional district has been giving funds from the province to look at the future of that corridor, because we'd like to preserve the corridor. But as you probably heard, in the Lanceville area, the Sonovis have taken over the land, because there was the deal. If the railway wasn't being used, the land would be reverted back to the First Nations.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of issues. It sounds simple, but it's very complex and has been discussed for decades what the future of the railway would be like. Councillor Skipsey's always had an interest in what the future should look like, so I'm going to ask if you can make any comment.
Yes, I'm in complete agreement. I think looking forward, we need to be thinking about alternative public transportation for the island, and I think especially the east side of Vancouver Island is only going to get more people living here, and it is going to be a priority rather than building more highways. I think we need to be looking at some kind of public transit system that's efficient and energy efficient as well. I would suggest maybe the Clean BC, the province is currently looking for input from residents, and I actually made that as one of my personal suggestions to the province, that they be thinking ahead and thinking outside the box, and thinking about light rail on Vancouver Island. So I could suggest maybe providing your input to the province as they're looking for input currently from residents of British Columbia. So.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Yeah, so the final study to end all studies, which is now being studied, is published, I believe, roughly 2017, 2018 by the provincial government. I can't remember. You should be able to find it online. And it looked basically at 3 scenarios. The issue with the old rail, as the mayor alluded to, it was something that didn't get a lot of passengers. It also didn't really have any commercial freight. And the money for rail lines is in commercial, not in passengers. And there wasn't really any commercial freight happening at all, really. The commercial freight's more like around the port facilities in Nanaimo, Victoria. There's a little bit there, but not really up and down the island. They estimated this is pre-pandemic about $1 billion. Like if you wanted to do the idea that you travel down, it's about an hour and a half to 2 hours, high-speed rail. You go to Victoria, you come back here. That was about $1 billion pre-pandemic. Who knows what it would cost now? The mayor alluded to the Snohomish Nation. There are several other nations that are talking about getting some of the land back. So it's something where you do want to protect the corridor. The mayor is absolutely correct in that, because one day there will be a use for rail. But one of the problems with the existing rail line, it was built 100 years ago, and so there's 100 different intersections where they have to stop. The grading doesn't allow you to go more than like 40 or 50 kilometers an hour in many sections. So it's a very slow rail line unless you build an elevated high-speed rail. And then you have to elevate basically the whole rail line to go over all the intersections, to go over everything. Because I know, like, I've used the light rail between Montreal and Ottawa, and there are a lot of folks who work in Ottawa and they live in Montreal. They just get on Via Rail at 5:30 in the morning, and it's an hour and you're there. But it's something where I think where we're trying to, the conversations we've had, at least there was a really good presentation recently where let's protect the corridor for now, so we don't have to rebuy the land in 40 years at ludicrous prices to build a rail line. And in the interim, let's see what we can do with it in terms of a trail for tourism. And then eventually there will come a time where the dollars will line up. But right now it's a very, very pricey project. And the way it would work economically, you'd have to build another piece of infrastructure called the Port Alberni Transshipment Hub, which the Port Authority has been trying to get done. The federal government, last I heard, required a 2/3 private investment, and none of the big shipping companies like Maersk, there's a Korean company, I forget the name, none of them are really looking at that. So if that's the only way it can be profitable, even then, the Port Alberni Transshipment Hub was supposed to be barges, not rail. It might be a while, but it's not a bad idea that one day we should get rail. There's a dollar and cents, sadly, lands. But I do appreciate where you're coming from, because one day will be absolutely perfect for the island. You're right.
No, I appreciate all your feedback. Those are very valid points and hurdles. Also, First Nations land management through Crofton, I think, has been a hurdle as well. So that proposes its own challenges, whether those communities are on board as well. It's just my vision that we have such a beautiful island to go green. There's a love affair with people and their vehicles, I think, and trucks here on the island too, that hopefully this younger generation we can get away from maybe a little bit. And that's my thought for just interrail travel. It's just more relaxing, it's more efficient, but yeah, expensive. But I don't know, maybe I won't take up more of your time. Maybe you just keep that in your thoughts.
Yeah, what was your name, sir?
My name is Robert.
Robert?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Anyone else before I give the floor back to Mr. Wood? Okay, Mr. Wood, you're up for a second time.
Combination of Tim and Pritchard leads to the word trip. I think I raised my hand at least as many times as Councillor Harrison has today. There's three things I want to revisit that have been mentioned here today. No, two of them have been mentioned. The first one is, I recall when the development that's now called the Residences at Qualicum Station was being talked about, and the rerouting where you come in on Village Way West and hook up around now onto Railway Street. There was definitely a component in there that said the railway access off Railway Street onto Memorial would be closed, and it showed a little turnaround at the end. So this is not a new idea. It seems to have fallen off the map for some reason, and I think it's an eminently good idea because as many people have said, the sight line coming up the road, up Memorial from the waterfront direction is terrible when you get around that corner. You just cannot see anything. Next one was, I would like to clarify the comment that was made about the September 10th, 4 p.m. Committee of the Whole meeting. Did I take that to, did I understand that correctly, that that was to have the community transportation plan as a focus of that meeting?
Ms. Swenson of Varela, yes, I think it is.
Yes, that's a standalone issue for that meeting that we have now once a year annually, Your Worship.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the community transportation plan. And the third comment I'll make is I spent better part of half an hour this morning on the town's website trying to find a document that shows the urban containment boundary in the form of a map. No success whatsoever. I got into the map portion. The only piece that I could find out how to look at is the house I live in. And I know that's inside the urban containment boundary.
Yes, you definitely are, Mr. Wood. Mr. Sales.
Thank you. Through the chair to the delegation's question. That map is on OCP map schedule 2.1. Of course, how would you know to look there? So we are working with our IT team in this OCP review to digitize the OCP maps and make them available on the town's mapping interface. It's never been done in the past. So some of the existing OCP maps are actually from base maps 15 years ago. So they're all being recreated essentially so that they can actually be implemented or accessed in a more convenient way.
So if I was to search for OCP map schedule 1?
2.1.
Oh, 2.1. I'll be doing that part of this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. And just a gentle reminder that if the public or council is experiencing challenges with the website, it is still a work in progress. As the director referred to, we are still digitizing things and those kinds of efforts. So please don't hesitate to reach out to staff with any assistance that you require, because it will also flag for us if it's something that isn't currently loaded up and it is achievable, then we could create a solution for that challenge. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Harrison.
Oh, and just if the 2.1 doesn't show up, because you never know, sometimes just like the overall OCP from that year, I think it was the 2016 OCP, and then there'll probably be a list of documents, and then that's how I found it in the past, at least, with the old iteration of the website.
I think it's 2018.
Oh, 2018, sorry. Yeah, you're right. But yeah, that might be an easier way, because that's probably more likely to be flagged in our system.
Thank you. Anyone else from the gallery? Well, thank you for a very respectful process and informed discussions and questions. Really appreciate your input and your participation. With that, I think we adjourn the Committee of the Whole as an open house. I have a motion, Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Van der Valk. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. The meeting.